I've been making a series of tutorials on how I do my full coverage stitching using a parking method with where I leave my threads on the needles. And the feedback I'm getting has been really super. It's really encouraging and it's inspiring me to make more videos. One of the things I'm finding is because I decided to make these videos fairly quickly back to back, the process of making the video, of recording and editing and posting is down to maybe a quarter of the time that it was when I started. So it's pretty easy to do now. So if you have any questions or something that you would like me to explain, I can pretty quickly put together something. This is also really helpful for me. My life is pretty stressful right now, and this is something that I can do that takes my mind off of it, that is engaging and interesting and helpful for other people. And so videos help you, but they're also helping me, because it really does help me get out of my head for a little bit and think about other stuff. So today's video is about laying tools. In my last tutorial on how I use the parking method, where I leave my needles threaded, I briefly mentioned that I use a laying tool, and you saw me using it, but I didn't slow down the process. And so it was probably too quick for people to really understand exactly what I was doing. So I'm going to, in the next section of this video, I'm going to explain what a laying tool is, what it's for, and how you use it. At the end of that section, I'm also going to talk about railroading your stitches, which is another way of basically getting your two strands of your floss to lay parallel. That's not something that I do. I know how to do it, but I don't use it in my actual stitching. If there's someone out there who does do railroading and maybe has a video, please let me know and I will share it with everyone so that there's an actual person who uses that skill is available for other people to learn from. So again, today's video is about how to use a laying tool and why you would use it. I hope you find this helpful. I stitched 30 stitches without a laying tool and with a laying tool so that you could see an example of both side by side. What the difference between the two is very subtle. Without the laying tool, you see a little bit more of the background fabric coming through, less so when you do use a laying tool. So the coverage increases, not by a ton, but by enough that I think that it's worth the time and effort to use a laying tool. Just as a comparison, stitching, I can stitch faster without a laying tool, but not by a whole lot. So even with being able to stitch faster without it, because the coverage is better with a laying tool, I think I'm always going to use a laying tool when I'm stitching a full coverage piece. I'm down to the end of my diagonal, so I'm not running a whole lot of needles anymore, so I thought this would be a good spot to show you how I use a laying tool. So what is a laying tool? Well, to my knowledge, they come in two versions. One is just kind of a stick. I bought this on eBay years ago, probably 5-6 years ago. I looked up the seller. Their site isn't active anymore, so I don't have a link for an actual laying tool. But if you want to get something like this, you could easily just get a chopstick that's like a higher quality chopstick that's either bone or lacquered wood. You can probably go to like Cost Plus or someplace and get something that would work just as well as this one. The other one is called a trolley needle. I will put a link to a trolley needle. It's not this one, unfortunately. I haven't been able to find this prettier one. That one's kind of a more basic one, but it's the same idea. So this one you actually wear as a ring. I use both of these in my non-dominant right hand, and you kind of have to play around with them to see which one works. So I'll start with this one. So the purpose of a laying tool is to take the twists out of your thread. So if you would never do this with a single strand of floss because there's no twists there that you need to untwist. So what happens as you stitch up and down through the fabric, as you've probably noticed, is that your thread will twist around itself. This is why you drop the needle at the back and let it kind of spin around and untwist itself. That gets some of the twists out, but what you're trying to aim for to get really pretty stitches is for your two strands to lay parallel to each other, not like at an angle or crossed over or anything like that. The nearer you can get them to be laying parallel, the neater your stitches are going to be. That's going to be especially important if you are using blended colors. So if you're using one strand of floss of one color, one strand of another, then getting those strands to lay parallel to each other becomes even more important. So basically what you do is as you're pulling the floss through, I actually have a thread here that I forgot to park. Left it at the bottom. So as you start pulling your floss through the fabric, you just put a bit of tension on it. So I scoop up the thread, and as I'm pulling the thread through, I'm dropping the tip until it just drops off the tip of the needle, of the laying tool like that. Some people only lay the top leg of their stitches. I do both because it's just, I don't want to have to remember, do I need to lay this stitch or not? I just lay everything because I just get in a rhythm. So again, you just put that in and then drop the tip as you get down to the fabric. Scoop, pull, drop. I'm going to zoom in. Hang on. So you scoop up the thread. And then you just drop it as you get close to the fabric. It takes a little bit to get used to having this in your hand and manipulating the needle at the same time. I'm going to rotate this so you can kind of see it. See on the wood how it's just those strands are laying nice and parallel. So all I do is, as I pull on the thread with my left hand under the fabric, I just pull down, drop the tip, and it seats the stitch. And I don't need any more colors of that. So I'll speed it up a little bit. I can't do this quite at full speed because I can't, the phone's in the way, so I can't quite get my head over the work to be able to see it. But scoop, drop. So scoop up the thread and then drop it as you go through the fabric. Scoop it, tension, drop. Okay, let's try the trolley needle. So you'll have to play around with which finger you want to put it on. I use my ring finger, but you can use whichever works for you. And same idea, scoop, drop. So scoop, put a bit of tension on it, and drop your finger. Scoop up the thread, drop it. And it's just a bit of tension, not a ton. So it's more just, I'm almost just slowing down that floss as it goes in. I'm gonna have to end this thread, but not right now. Just put it out of the way. Oops, there went my tweezers. So reach in, just put a bit of tension on it, and as you're pulling your thread through, you just drop your finger down. Let it slip right off. I mean, it really is just one gesture more. So as opposed to just doing this, I scoop, drop. If I can find the hole, come on, there we go. Scoop, drop, and that's it. The other way that people use to get the twists out of their floss is to railroad their stitches. I'm going to show you the idea of that, but I don't do this, so I'm not an expert, and I actually need to think about this a little bit. So what you do, and if there's anyone out there in FlossTube land that does railroad and you're good at it, and you happen to have a video, I would love it if you would give me a link to that so I could share it, and because this isn't something I do. So you put your needle in between the two threads, the two strands of your floss, and then that's how you pull your needle through. And that just causes your two strands to separate out and lay. So you put your needle in like that. And I bet you could get, you know, with a bit of practice, you could get pretty quick with this. So between the two strands, and then you put it down, and what that does is it just forces those two strands to pull apart, and they lay parallel. Good old snag nab it there. And so in between the strands and then down through. I vaguely recall, I think, Globe-Trotting Stitcher, I think she might have mentioned that she railroads her stitches and was saying that she would maybe do a tutorial at some point. So but I actually haven't seen anybody actually like give a full-on demonstration of how to do this. And because I've got the laying tool thing down, I don't think I'm ever gonna really start doing this, because I've got my own method. But I thought I would just show you how to do railroading. So that's basically how to use a laying tool. Again, what it does is it takes out the twists in your two strands of floss. It allows them to lay nice and parallel, and it's going to make for neater stitches. And just so you can see, I mean, this thing has turned out gorgeous. And a big reason why is because I use that laying tool. And if you look, I mean, we're zoomed in about as far as my camera goes, and if you look at those stitches, they're pretty good. I mean, obviously it's not going to be 100% perfect, but they're pretty parallel. I think I just found one that I forgot to cross. Oh well. I hope you find this helpful.